All right, guys. Welcome back. EYL Hometown Heroes Edition.
That's right.
For
Two
sure.
hometowns this time.
For sure. So we are in DC right now.
DC's been good
We just
to us.
finished up crazy event. We had Top Golf. We had like 200 people there. It was crazy.
Yeah. You know what somebody said? They were like, yo, man, this is crazy. Everybody I follow on social media is in this room right now. How y'all do this?
Yeah, shout out to everybody that came to the event. Shout out to our guy Sharani. For sure.
Capital Event Group. Man.
Capital Events Group.
They shout out to the boy Charani. He's amazing, man. So if you're in DC and you need an event planned or curated, get the contact, follow him on Instagram. I'm sure we'll put a post up about it. He took care of us, man. DC would not be the same without him.
Yeah, thank you for the hospitality, bro. Appreciate it. And
Chris Coy too. Chris Coy,
Chris Coy wouldn't be possible without Chris Coy for sure. Networking, power of networking.
Yeah.
And Atlanta, you're next. January 25th, January 26th, we're gonna take over the whole city. We're gonna do a big. You can't play around with Atlanta.
Every time I have to pull up.
Yeah, that's a fact.
Every time we say Atlanta, Jamal starts. He starts running his head.
If you know, you know, man. Shout out to the great city of Atlanta. Can't wait to touch the town. We're gonna be releasing details soon. Details might have already been released by this episode comes out, but we're gonna do it really big. So we have a dope episode planned today. And it is, Hometown Heroes. Even though we're in DC, it's not a DC hometown hero, but it's
not yet.
Yeah, not yet. Yeah. It's a Milwaukee, Wisconsin hometown hero that lives in DC and Milwaukee.
Both.
So my man Brandon Rule, it was interesting because, like, I think you had the article on We Buy Black, and it went viral. And then, Troy sent it to me.
Yeah.
And then somebody else sent it to me.
Oh yeah.
And then, but I didn't read it in full transparency because he sends me like 7 articles a day.
Gotcha.
But like by the time the third person read it, sent it to me, I read it. And I'm like, yo, we should probably interview. He's like, yeah, I sent it to you 2 weeks ago. I'm like, oh, okay.
No. See how you treat me?
So I'm like,
That's how it goes.
So when I hit you up, like, yo, you interested in coming? He's like, yeah, somebody actually just told me about your podcast.
Just told me. Yeah, my homie was like, yo, you should probably reach out.
This is like one of the quickest turnarounds.
Yeah?
Yeah, like 2 weeks ago, I was like, yo, this guy's dope. My man Ken from Detroit hit me like, yo, this guy's dope. I'm like, yeah, I just read about him. And then like the next week, he was like, yo, he's going to come on. So I'm like, oh, this is great.
It was easy. 1, 2, 3. So Brandon's dope. He's 31 years old, and we talk about real estate a lot. Most of the time from our podcast is real estate investors, which is dope. Wholesaling, buying, flip, stuff like that. But he's a developer, right? And he's young. He's 31 years old. And most of his developments are in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Right.
And he has $40 million of affordable housing currently under his belt as far as development, and then $180 million in the pipeline.
Yeah.
And
don't let that go over your heads.
Yeah,
please.
for sure.
Please.
And just got awarded a huge $41 million.
$41 million for the first phase.
For the first phase.
$20 million in the second phase.
And that's going to be for a grocery store. The first thing you're going to do is a grocery
30,000 square foot grocery store with 150 apartments above.
And the parking garage.
Yeah, parking garage too.
Yeah. So this is going to be a high level conversation. It's going to be
get in the weeds if y'all want to.
Yeah.
Maybe not too much.
So first and foremost, thank you.
Thank y'all for having me. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Sure.
So, all right. So before we even get into the nitty gritty of what you're doing, how did you get started? Because it's an interesting story. Because if people don't know who the legend Don Peebles are, and that's unfortunate.
We mention them sometimes.
It's really an unfortunate situation if you think about it. Because it's like everybody knows who LeBron is.
Right.
Everybody knows who Lil Wayne is. Right. Mm-hmm. But this guy has definitely more money than Lil Wayne. Not shout out to Tooch, no disrespect, but probably like almost the same amount of money than LeBron, maybe more money than LeBron, right? Like he's on his way close to being a billionaire, right? Yeah, and he's black, developer
from DC.
From DC, and not a lot of people are really familiar with him. So he kind of I bring him up because he's the start of your real estate journey, right? In DC at least.
In DC for sure.
So yeah, what's your path in real estate, and what's your path to coming to DC from Milwaukee?
For sure. I'll just start from the beginning for real. So I'm from Milwaukee, but I was actually born in Los Angeles, California. So I was born in LA, and in 1994 I was in the earthquake, the Northridge earthquake. At the time, it was the worst natural disaster in worst natural disaster financially in American history. So over $1 billion worth of damages. One of that being my home. So we lost everything. Slept outside for a few days. Remember vaguely like being outside of the Walmart and just not having any resources. The highways were broken, everything. So my parents are high school sweethearts from Chicago. My dad was like, I ain't with this, we going back. So my grandfather was living in Milwaukee at the time. We ended up moving to Milwaukee into his attic as we got back on our feet. A couple months later, rented the house and then moved forward. So from that point forward, I grew up in Milwaukee. And if anyone knows anything about Milwaukee, it's actually the worst place for black people in America right now. Google it, it'll pop up. Many articles, many reports.
I saw a statistic. It was like specifically Madison, where 6% of the population is black, but 50% of the people incarcerated are black.
Oh yeah, easy,
something crazy.
Easy. Yeah, Madison is ridiculous too. Racine is ridiculous too. Milwaukee is actually closer to 40% black. But we have national like problems, but just not national resources. Very similar to a Detroit, very similar to a Baltimore. But no one's really looking there. You don't hear about black folks from Milwaukee. Black people don't leave. It's just a thing. Average, I think, median income in Milwaukee for a black person is $28,000. A black family.
Yeah.
$28,000.
Family, like a family of four type thing?
Just a family, period.
Wow.
Yeah.
A black family. Let's say 2-parent, family 3 to 4. It's not always 2 parents, but $28,000 is the average for a family in Milwaukee. And that's very much so what me, my friends, my family, everybody. That's my roots. That's who I am. That's where I'm from. But I needed to break that. So I went to school. All of my family were influenced by my grandfather, who was a very successful street pharmacist. And
I love the language. That goes
language is important.
It's important. That goes. We're gonna file that where we had returning citizens.
For sure.
That's going in that same book.
Returning citizens. Shanita Penny. Y'all should check Shanita out. She actually was the first person I heard say returning citizens. But so he was a street pharmacist. And he influenced my entire family. He was an entrepreneur. He was really, the first millionaire in the family. By the time I came, he got hit with the RICO law, and we didn't have any money again. So I didn't really have that benefit. But I say that to say, I was the one that wanted to change the trajectory of the entire family. So I went to school, did it a different way. I was always like the chosen one. It's like, okay, cool, you got it. Went out to school. Grew up in the Milwaukee public school system, which is actually one of the worst in the country as well. Wear that on my sleeve because, you can come from any environment and make it, right?
That's a fact.
So went on to school, went on to Marquette University, studied economics, minored in sociology. So I think that kind of gave me the background that I needed in real estate. Economics, understanding capitalism. A lot of people think money is bad when really it's just a tool. It's a tool to leverage in a way that you do any other tool, right? So study economics, but also study sociology. How do people fit within this? How does the people from the hood fit within this capitalistic, society that we live within? So that was my foundation. Then my junior, senior year, 4th year, I took a program called the Edgar Program, which stands for Associates in Commercial Real Estate. And that pretty much exposed me to what commercial real estate development was, because like many other folks, I hear real estate and like you think of a broker, you think of a realtor, but there's so many other things when it comes to real estate. You're like so many professions. So when you think about a development process, a civil engineer, environmental engineer, geotechnical engineer, an architect, a contractor, a developer, a lender, there's so many different avenues that you can get into. So that program exposed me to that. And then it's like, okay, well, developers make a lot of money. I wanted financial freedom and I wanted some flexibility. So I was like, okay, well, I think I want to do this. And then that's when I started on my real estate path. While doing that, I got my hands on a book called The People's Principles, which was written by Don Peebles. Don Peebles, billionaire black developer from DC. That's where he started, then moved on to Miami and went to Vegas, and now is based in New York. And I read this book. Really was inspired by the really technical things that he said within it. It's like, this is how I became what I became. And I was like, oh, this is great. Okay, well, I'm going to follow a similar path, but just do it my way. So in 2016, I got my first low-income housing tax credit. So affordable housing developments in the past were financed through Section 8. So if you think about a Section 8 property, Cabrini Greens in Chicago, some of these really large berry farms in DC, really large complexes, 300-400 units, and really just clusters of poverty. That's how they were financing them. But now they use a tool called Section 42 IRS code, which is a tax credit. So we are given a tax credit that we sell to an investor and use that to finance the project.
Can you explain that a little bit? Because Section 8, I think most people know what Section 8 is, right? Where it's like it's government and they subsidize housing, right? And but Section 8, you don't have to live in the projects. Like you can have a house.
So there's two different types.
Okay.
There's Section 8 project-based vouchers. So projects got the Section 8 assistance. Okay. But then there were also like people-based vouchers,
right.
where you can take that into
and you go into like a house and they pay the landlord.
Right.
So what's the new way?
Section 42 is the primary tool for affordable housing. There's still some Section 8. Yeah. There's still some vouchers. But Section 42, just really high level. If you think about a building and you think about developing a building, it may cost $40 million to develop a building, right? Typically, in order to fund that building, you need rents that'll pay you enough to then get a bank to give you a loan. So you need a construction loan, and then you need permanent financing. So in order to get the construction loan, one of the threshold items is, hey, how much is the loan to value of this projected property? So if your value based on rents being at $1,500 a month equates to $40 million, you can then build.
Who's doing the assessment of how much each one is worth?
Each unit, the market kind of determines that.
Okay.
So drilling deeper into that, let's say $1,500 per equates to $40 million. Right. Let's say now you're in an area that rents can only be $750 per. Mm-hmm. People still need to live, but we still need additional housing. In order to build that, the government created a tax credit that subsidized developers for the difference. So if the 750 gives me 20 million, I effectively I'm gonna get 20 million in a tax credit to then make it balance and make it work.
So they'll pay you, the developer.
They pay the project.
So they pay the project.
They pay the project.
Not you personally, but they fund the project.
Yeah.
And
they allocate a tax credit to the developer to sell on behalf of the project.
So they pay the person pays $700 and then $1,000. If it was $1,700, $1,000 is being paid
through the tax credit. Up front.
Right, okay.
And in exchange for the tax credit, you have to restrict the rents for a certain amount of time.
Okay.
15 years, 30 years, et cetera.
And the rents are like market-based?
Yeah, so it's based on the area median income. So that's really like how they determine it. And they have different thresholds. So a 30% unit is like very low income. A 50% unit and a 60% unit is what we would call workforce or affordable housing. And then you have 80% units as well that can be financed through this tax credit. And that's based on, so take DC, $100,000 area median income in DC, 50% unit is $50,000. If a person makes $50,000 in DC, they can qualify for affordable housing under this threshold. You take 30% of that income divided by 12 months, that's how you come out to the rent amount that you can pay.
Okay.
So... Okay.
Yeah,
so
that was a little deep. Sorry.
No, that's right up EYL. That's what we do.
Okay,
that's
cool.
the whole.
Cool.
It's right in line.
Numbers, man.
Right in line with our content.
Yeah, for sure.
So you meet Don Peoples, right?
Yeah.
And how does that go?
Yeah. So 2017, I jumped out. He was speaking at a conference in DC, and I was like, I have to meet this guy. So I stood by the door, very tenacious. I'm an ambitious guy by nature, A-type personality. If I want something, I'm going to go get it. And I wanted to meet him. So I went, introduced myself. I had just received that tax credit. That's why I wanted to get that story. Just received the tax credit. I was about to develop my first project. Hey, Don, what's up? I'm Brandon. I got my first project in. I got a couple more in my pipeline. Would love to connect. And he was impressed by what I was doing because my age, I think I was 26, 27 at the time. And his first project, I was 27. He was awarded his first project at 27 as well. So I was on that path. It's like, okay, yeah, this is the only black billionaire doing what I'm doing. I need to meet him. So we met, had a phone call about a month later. And the biggest takeaway I took from that phone call was he said, work on larger deals. So at that time, my deal was $12.5 million. Mm-hmm. I had another deal that was about $14 million. And I had another deal that was like $7 million. The $14 million deal was a market rate unit. It wasn't an affordable housing development. Actually never went through. I'll talk on that too. But I needed to raise about 1.5 from equity investors. in order to finance the project. And you just, go out to folks, get 100,000 here, 250 there, et cetera, et cetera. And he pretty much just put it in perspective for me. He said, I just raised $500 million in New York. And this is the easiest money I ever raised. Because institutional capital, the demand on that is so much less than the demand on everyday individuals and investments. Because you can invest in stocks, you can invest in bonds, you can invest in a different real estate project, you can invest in your kid's college fund. Individuals have so many options, but institutional capital needs places to put this money. So he told me to work on larger deals, and I say about 3 months later, I moved to DC.
That reminds me of 3 stories. So I'll take them one by one. Well, first off, you know how one of the people that really got Don Peoples into the game, Marion Barry.
Yeah, for sure.
Did you know that?
100%.
DC legend.
DC legend. Rest in peace. So that's one story. The second story is that what you said reminds me. I watched the interview with Magic Johnson and Maverick Carter. Shout out to both of them.
Classic.
And Magic told Maverick, he said, the same amount of time that it takes to do a deal for $1 million, it takes to do $100 million.
100%.
So do the $100 million. Because it's the same energy.
Same energy.
It's the same energy.
Same
You know,
process.
it's not like you have to do additional energy. It's the same energy output. It's just you're focusing your energy on a small
Got to
item.
level up.
Yeah.
You can focus your energy on big,
100%.
or you can focus your energy on small.
Yeah.
The third one was Byron Allen.
Okay.
He was on the Breakfast Club.
Yeah.
And he just said what you said as far as especially in institutions, a lot of times they have a problem where they have to spend money.
They have to.
They have to spend money.
They raised it. They have it.
Exactly.
It has to go
They're
out.
looking they have whole teams devoted to look for opportunities.
Right.
Which means they have whole teams devoted to look to say, where can I give money away to different deals and how can I position this? Because I have $500 million
we have
that
to
I
allocate
got to do
this.
something with.
Right.
Here's just 500.
So,
No, it's real.
Raise your hand, please.
so,
But
all
you
right.
have to understand the key to that. You have to understand that language. It's a language of finance. That's the way I look at it. It's no different from English versus Spanish. We all know English. Some people know Spanish. Some people know finance. It's just a language. And if you understand the language and if you understand what they are saying and what they are looking for, you can make it work.
So how did you? I'm interested to know this because you started in the game very young, early 20s,
Early.
and
23, you said,
Yeah,
right?
23. Yeah.
you know, humble beginnings. It's not like your family was, you know, in real estate. So how do you get your first? How do you learn the language? How do you get your first deal in real estate as a developer? Like, how does that? Can you walk me through that process? Like your very first deal. Like, how does that happen?
So my first deal was actually a 4-unit investment. It was a real estate investment type of play. It was a HUD home on the northwest side of Milwaukee.
Buy and hold.
Yeah, I just sold it about a year and a half ago.
Okay.
So I bought that when I was 23. So let me rewind.
FHA?
FHA, yeah, 3.5% down. It was only $85,000, and I sold it for like $160.
Nice.
So that was like,
Well played.
right. You know, it makes sense. So that was my entry point. But rewinding, so once I finished the Edgar Program, I'm like, okay, this real estate thing is cool. I think I want to figure out how to be a developer. I spent a lot of time trying to put the pieces of the puzzles together. So I started going to events. I went to a ton of conferences, a ton of seminars, galas, all type of things. I was just searching for people and information and knowledge. And I equated it to like putting together a puzzle, right? It's like, if this is the real estate puzzle, how do I find the pieces? And then how do I put them together? So I met a guy by the name of Keith Broaden. No, first I went to an awards banquet called the Mandy Awards. It's Community Development Awards in the city of Milwaukee. I'm actually up for it. I'm a finalist of the real estate award this year too. So
Congratulations.
thank you.
I'm sure you'll win.
Yeah, I appreciate
After
it.
this episode comes
This episode
out.
puts you over
There we
the
go.
top.
There we go.
We're
We're
gonna
Put you over the
top.
finish line.
So, yeah, I went to this awards banquet, and I met a gentleman by the name of Wayman Winston. Wayman Winston was the executive director of WIDA. WIDA is the housing authority that administers the low-income housing tax credits. So I was like, yeah, I want to be a developer, et cetera, et cetera. He was like, well, if you want to be a developer, come to this conference. This is the developers conference. It's going to be all developers. There's going to be lenders. There's going to be architects, syndicators. Anyone that plays in this arena in the state of Wisconsin will be here at the conference. Conference was like a couple $100. I didn't have it. Ended up getting sponsored somehow. I think I like figured out a way to finesse my way up there. So, I threw on a suit. I had a little nappy fro at the time, and I just was meeting everyone I could meet. And I ran into this gentleman who I just saw a few weeks ago, Keith Broadnex. He was working at Great Lakes Capital, which is now called Sinair. They're a syndication firm. They raise funds, and then they administer. They pretty much purchase the tax credits on behalf of investors. And he gave me my first pro forma. So a pro forma is essentially an Excel document that pretty much is the business plan for real estate development. And what that does, it allows you to understand how much this will cost to build and how it will perform over the next 15 to 30 years. So he gave me this pro forma, and I had no clue what it was. I wasn't really a finance guy. I was an economics major, but I wasn't a math or finance guy really. So I was just diving in and I tried to figure it out. So I would like Google every term. Google University is a thing.
It's a real thing.
That's a fact.
YouTube University is a thing. I was Googling every single term, trying to understand.
You know what else is a thing? EYL University.
Hey.
We'll talk about that later on.
Let's get that's the thing. We need
It's a real thing. It's a real thing.
Okay, bet. Even better. It's by us. So, I was just Googling all of the terms within this document, and I just started to work in it. So I was working at the bank at the time. I was working at PNC Bank as a personal banker, making $23,000 a year. And I was like, man, I can't. This isn't my life. Like, I'm not about to just be wearing these nice suits, getting up at 6 in the morning, getting home at 6 p.m., doing this for the rest of my life. I can't do it. So I would then get off work and then go back to work from 7 to midnight, 7 to 1, 7 to 2. Every single day, I was in that pro forma working for years.
Educating yourself.
Educating myself. In that, no articles, no press, no publication, no payments. Every single day I was working. So what then happened was I realized that I was only making about $1,500 after taxes per month. And then I came across this 4-unit that was $85,000.
In Milwaukee?
In Milwaukee. So I put 3.5% down. I was renting out I think the rents were about $600 a piece, maybe $625. Do the math on that, 24. My mortgage was about $1,000. So I was clearing 14 just off of this when I was only clearing 15 at the bank. I quit my job. The moment I bought the 4-unit, I couldn't quit before because I needed to show the income to buy the 4-unit.
Right.
But once I closed, I quit. I was out of there. Yeah. That then gave me the freedom to dig deeper into this real estate thing.
Now you're spending the entire time.
All my time, energy, and effort was going towards real estate development specifically. I knew investing was cool, but I wanted to figure out how to be a developer because the fees associated with it are great. Yeah. Just to break it down for real, developer doesn't get a $40 million payment or anything like that, but you, on a market rate side, you may see 3 to 6% of the total cost. So if you're working on a $100 million deal, do the math. On the affordable side, you get about 10 to 15%.
10 to 15%. Really?
On the total project cost. Yeah.
So
do the math.
So if you do a $40 million deal, you get 10%. That's $4 million.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah.
Yes. 10
to 15%. Depending on where you are.
He took the latter.
Somewhere.
Don't lowball me. Don't lowball me.
Somewhere around there.
Don't lowball me. Respect it. Throw some respect on the name, man.
So to that point, it was like, okay, let me figure out how to do this development thing. I worked in this model. Boom, 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 boom. I saw the numbers. So I'm like, oh, they're making some real life money in this thing. So figured it out. So I start working. I met with him again, showed him it. It was terrible. He helped me. Met a consultant that does development consultant, and she was actually a CPA as well. Charlena Brown, based out of Atlanta. She helped me hone my skills when it came to my performance and my model. Yeah. So what we did was just I would try to work in it. I would send it to her. She would edit it, send it back, and eventually I got good. It's like, okay, yeah, I know how to do a project. So then I started looking for projects.
So are you doing this on a platform? How what's the
Excel? Microsoft Excel.
That's
I was on my computer. You could $100 computer from Best Buy.
Yeah.
Download Excel and you working. That's it. You don't need anything else. So I'm just teaching myself all the language, teaching myself how to do things. So I started swinging at projects and I was missing. But it was a city-owned RFP, request for a proposal, very similar to the one that I just won in Madison. That one, I ended up pitching it to a developer, and I'm like, yo, let's co-develop this project. Here's my model for it. Would you guys be willing to split the developer fee and the ownership?
The model is, what's the model?
The model is another name for the pro forma, my bad.
What's the pro forma?
The pro forma is the business plan for real estate development.
Okay.
So
in the Excel.
In my mind, I'm thinking developer.
Pro forma and model they're the same thing. So I'm using them interchangeably.
So it's like the blueprint.
It's the blueprint.
Yeah.
The financial blueprint.
Financial blueprint for real estate development.
Now, does the developer do the physical blueprint as well, or that's going to be somebody down the line with architecture?
We outsource. Some development shops can have an architectural person on hand, but I outsource it.
So all right. So you study. You learn how to make a financial blueprint for a project. Like, this is my vision.
This is my
financially
vision.
how it makes sense.
For sure.
You don't have any experience.
No.
So you go to another established developer.
They've done it already.
They've done it already. And you say, like, I already have the blueprint. Let's work together on this. We can split.
Yeah. So now I'm creating value. That's the key. To get any partnership, you have to create value for the other person. It's not about what you want. It's what they want and how can you give it for them.
That's a fact.
Right? So it's like, okay, I mean, I'm going to give y'all the real number. So I think that project was, let's say $10 million. It was a $10 million deal. The fee on that was 12%, so we was at 1.2. And I'm like, all right, well, can we go 50-50 on it? They said, all right, let's
5.5.
Let's take a risk. Let's apply for it, see if we get it. If so, let's figure it out. If not, cool, keep it pushing. So I pitched it. And then at that point, I knew. It's like, wait a minute. I just created $600,000 just from my mind with a developer that does this for real, so I can now do it. I was probably like 24, 25 maybe. So that was the first time I actually knew. Shortly thereafter, I actually took a job. It was very intentional.
So at 24, you got the 600?
Nah, that never went through.
It never worked
that
out.
never worked out.
But they agreed to it.
But they agreed to it, and that's all I needed to know that I can
that
do.
it's possible.
It was possible at that point.
Yeah.
I'm here. I'm a developer now. You can't. Ain't nobody taking this from me.
Right.
So I ended up getting a job shortly thereafter. I didn't get that. Money was running low. Yeah, I had the 4-unit things like that. That was fine. But I got a job working at a CDFI.
A real job?
A real job.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, a real job.
What's a CDFI?
A CDFI is a community development financial institution.
Oh yeah, we just learned about that.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Who told us about that?
I'm a slow learner.
Yeah, I think I heard something. There was a young lady here. There was a young lady here who was talking just about the same thing. Yeah.
CDFIs, right?
Yeah.
So
It's a bright woman. Bright young woman.
Yeah. Shout out to the bright woman. So yeah, I ended up getting a job. It was actually halftime for 2 CDFIs. I was the only person in the country to do this, but I worked for Forward Community Investments. They were a mission-based community lender that provided loans to small businesses. And then a community reinvestment fund, they were a national nonprofit that did the same thing in a different way. So one was a state-based, focused on Wisconsin. Other one was national, also targeting Milwaukee. So I worked at home. I worked remotely. So I was really more of a contractor, for real. I worked remotely from home for both of these companies, really going out, doing technical assistance with businesses and understanding what the gaps were that, why aren't we giving this money out? Like, I had access to, one of them was from $50,000 to $5 million in lending. That was my lending capacity personally. I can give that out to businesses. So I was like, oh, this is great. It was very much aligned with my vision and my mission. And I was able to sit in on the credit committees of these different companies. So when it came to applying for loans and applying for some of these things, I knew exactly what they were looking for because I was sitting in there. So I worked there for 2 years.
What type of clientele or clients were you seeing?
Primarily business for community reinvestment. CRF, it was business clients. So I was looking at bars. I was looking at pubs. I was looking at cleaning companies. I was looking at, it was a full gamut. And then Forward Community Investments, it was more so real estate based, for real.
So you was on the inside of the institution, and you knew what they were looking for to lend money.
Yeah.
You used that when you left to get them to lend you money because you already knew what they were looking for.
In theory.
Is that where you're
it
going?
didn't really work out that way.
Okay.
It didn't
that was
really,
the idea?
Yeah, that was the idea.
Okay.
But now I know how all of the groups work the same. So yeah, I use that same tactic to get all of the rest of it.
So what were they looking for?
Um,
What made you attractive? Not you, I'm just saying, what will make somebody attractive to somebody?
Man, honestly, it's a huge gap. So I thought that I would be giving out a ton of money, and I had access to the capital, but I couldn't give it out. What they were looking for, it was a disconnect. It's like, our people are here, and their money is here. And I felt like it was my duty to kind of like bridge that gap. But that gap, so they were looking for, honestly, pretty traditional things. You know, it's like
reserves,
some
assets.
reserves, some, you know, may or may not do a startup, so you might have to have some income. Collateral is the biggest thing in our community. That's the biggest gap. We don't have collateral. If you think about history, a lot of businesses were funded because people owned real estate. Right? You were able to get business loans because you can put your house up. Millennials, I'm a millennial. We don't have houses.
Right.
You know, so that is a challenge. That is a shift in the marketplace that I don't think has been identified yet. So all of our people are like, yo, we don't have any money. We don't have any money. We don't have any money. There's such a access to capital gap, which there is. But on the other side, they're screaming, oh, we have so much money and we can't deploy it. That's what happens every single time. You talk to anyone in that industry, then that's what they're going to tell you.
All right. Bet. So now we're going to go into the next segment. We're going to talk about like your journey into developing, like how you find a deal, like all of the 101 on
process, the bidding,
on the whole deal. So we'll do that next. All right. So now we're going to ask a few questions that I think people will be interested in. As far as, you know, one thing with EYL is we talk about different topics that nobody really knows. It's like we don't really have an education on this stuff.
Right.
So as a real estate developer, right? So you do the financial blueprint, but now you actually have to develop it. But development costs a lot of money to scale these projects, right? So how does that part of it work as far as the construction aspect of it and actually develop it?
Because in my mind, I'm thinking in development, you're making the financial blueprint, but I'm like, you're not even seeing a physical output before you start? Or do you know like what you want this space to look like going in?
Yeah, you created. So the developer is the one that creates the vision in his mind.
Okay.
Very similar to a director of a movie, right?
Okay.
Like they're not the actor. They're not the script writer oftentimes, but they bring it all to fruition, and this is the way that it needs to go. So a developer, let's rewind a little bit. Real estate development is a business process that takes land and you put real estate on it. So very simple there. Go a little deeper. So I'm a commercial real estate developer. So I'm pretty much doing that at just a larger scale. And there's different like sections of it, right? So I guess, let's say, break it down into 3 phases. There's a pre-development phase where you do the design and you get the financials in order and you talk through some of those things. The second phase is the construction phase, to your point. That's when you go and you're actually building the project and you're managing the budget to make sure that this is on time and on budget, because if the cost of your development is more than what you anticipated, then when the recession hit, that's kind of what happened. Like you saw buildings that were halfway developed and people stepped away because there was not enough money to continue
complete
the project. And then the last phase is operation. So pre-development, construction, and operation. A developer pretty much runs that entire phase from beginning to end. So let's break them down. Pre-development phase, you have, I typically start off with zoning and entitlement. It's like, okay, I have a piece of land here. How large is it? Let's say it's an acre of land. Okay, based on this acre, what is it zoned for? What can I do here? My base is typically multifamily. So it's like, okay, how many units can I put on here? Let's say, an acre is 43,000 square feet. Depending on where you are, they base zoning off of Florida area ratio. So this thing called FAR. So let's say it's two times FAR. So you can put, if it's an FAR of 2, you can put a 86,000 square foot building on this parcel. And then you reverse engineer how many units you can fit there. So 83,000 square feet, depending on the unit size, if they're 1 and 2 bedrooms, you may be able to get 90 units. If they're, 3 and 4 bedrooms, you may be able to get 60 units. And then based on the program, you create a vision around what is attainable for the site. So I start with the zoning, and it's like, okay, what can I do? And then based on the zoning, I create a financial model and dig a little deeper. And then that's when I reach out to consultants to do some of the other work. It's like, hey, architects, I want to put 70 units right here.
How can you do it?
Can I do that?
Okay.
What does that look like? Can I do underground parking here? Can I have surface parking? How many stalls can I fit? And that kind of changes the iteration of that financial model that I was working on. Okay, let me change this up a little
How long does that pre-process take for you?
No time for real at this point.
Wow.
Couple hours.
Couple
hours.
Wow.
So and then the third one is the actual development, right? The construction.
Second one is construction. So we not even in construction yet. So
Okay.
that's early initial, just pre. And then what you do is like, okay, I think I'm on to something. And then you go get the site under control. So you reach out to the landowner. Is it available? Is it private? Is it public? If it's public land, sometimes they have RFPs. And that's what I was awarded with the $41 million. I was awarded that land to now develop it.
By the state or the city?
That was city owned.
Okay.
But sometimes it's state owned, sometimes it's city, sometimes it's county. It varies.
Okay.
So that was public. That's a public-private partnership in that way. But sometimes it's private. So when it's private land, that's when it's a little more difficult. It's a little more difficult because people value their land the way that they value their land. It's no different from a property. If you own a home, you may feel like your home is worth $500,000. The appraisal may say your home is worth $200 or $100. So when you go to that individual and say, hey, this is my plan for this site, y'all have to have some level of common ground to make sure that this works. Because if they want 5 times your number, it's not feasible, you move on. Mm-hmm. That vision can't come to fruition because this is not a roadblock. And then once you then, okay, yeah, I think this will work around this price, I'll give you X for it. You want X for it? Okay, what's the timing? In DC, I mean, typically you got to have a 30-day close, 60-day close, like a quick, no contingencies, no nothing. In Wisconsin, I could, sometimes do a year and a half without having to close on the financing. And by close, I mean actually pay for the land. You pay for the land typically when your financial at construction start. So when you close on all your finances, I got all my ducks in a row. It all comes to the table at the same time, and it goes out to the various parties. One of those parties being the landowner. They could walk away. I now purchase it. I now can start construction, which is now phase 2.
So when you're in that phase and you try to get the land, what's the bidding process, right? So you were awarded the land. What kind of explain what that means? But what's the process of bidding for it?
Yeah.
Too.
So on the private side, no process. It's just 1-to-1. Mm-hmm. Can I buy this from you or no?
Right.
And I've been told no because of my age and my color before, to be honest.
Yeah.
But on the public side, they typically put out a list of priorities that they want. The most recent one, my 89 unit was a public partnership, and they just wanted redevelopment of a blighted site. It was half a mile away from where I was raised, and I wanted to develop it, so I put 89 units of affordable housing in my hood. That's what I did. And they agreed with my plan. It wasn't very competitive, and that was that. But there are other ones, like the one in Madison that I just won. It was very, very competitive. They had multiple rounds of RFPs.
What's the RFP again?
Request for proposal. Mm-hmm. So that's when the city says, hey, these are our priorities for this site. We own this site. We don't want to own this site. Cities often don't want to own sites because they want to benefit from the tax revenue from it. Mm-hmm. It's not in their best interest to pay the upkeep. It's a lot of risk associated with owning land. So cities often try to partner and sell and do things like that. So this priority specifically, they wanted a grocery store. The site right next door is a Pick and Save. Roundy's was just acquired by Kroger, and they're shutting that Pick and Save down. So now this area is about to be a food desert. So the city was like, okay, in order for us to preserve some level of grocery in this area, we need to put out an RFP. So that was their number one priority, a grocery store. Second was affordable housing and some level of housing and density. So I put together the best plan to bring that grocery store in the quickest amount of time.
So, all right, they need a grocery store. They identified they need a grocery store. Why don't they just reach out to grocery stores directly? Why do they need a developer?
They did. Grocery stores often don't develop their own land either. They lease. So a developer manages that process. Businesses don't typically manage that process. If you think about Apple isn't going to build their own headquarters. They're going to hire some consultants or a developer to build it for them. So that's a RFP can be in that way too. So that said, it's of interest for them to align themselves with a developer who has the capacity to do this because it's not something that just easily can be done.
Got it.
They can't just do it.
So phase 2, the construction phase. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, construction. So each phase is a little less risky. So pre-development phase is a ton of risk. I'll rewind a little bit, then I'll go into it. It's a ton of risk because you're paying a ton of consultants to do work. You're doing environmental assessments, a phase 1 and a phase 2. That could be $10,000 between the two.
Environmental assessment, when they're checking the dirt to see
checking
the soil is viable and all that?
Well, yeah, so environmental, that's one where they're seeing if it's contaminated. Has it been was this a gas station historically? Is this up to code? Because you don't want those soils to rise and the people get sick and die and all that stuff. So you pay for environmental consultants. You pay for civil consultants, which put together the design of the building and make sure this is secure. Okay, architects design it, but the civil engineers are saying this will be sturdy for X amount of time. We won't have settlement, et cetera. And then you hire geotechnical consultants to test the soil and to see, is the soil okay, stuff like that. So the soil is more so like for settlement. Civil is more so for structure and longevity and things like that. So all of those people you got to hire prior to getting to construction.
Who's paying for that?
The developer is. So yeah, great question.
Milwaukee is.
The king of Milwaukee. Yeah, but you can get, once you have a plan together, you can get loans. In theory, they can get loans. We can't get loans,
That's
really.
a fact.
Right.
They can get loans. So I partner with the people that can get the loans and I'll go into that in a second. But you pay for all of these consultants, even architect. All the architectural designs are pretty renderings and all of that stuff.
Pricey.
Yeah, that's a couple $100,000. Easy.
So
Before you get to construction.
are any of these RFPs or like, does it ever come into play with the was it MWBE, Minority Women Business? Is it because are they like, do they have to have a certain amount of developments that are developed by minority developers? Is that ever a case?
Minority developers is not a thing.
It's not a thing.
It's not minority contractors is a thing.
Okay.
Minority developers is not a thing. So I have to, and my development counterparts, dead ass. I'm an anomaly for real. Yeah. So I have to hire minority women, veterans, and my colleagues have to do the same. My counterparts do the same. We have to hire them, the construction workers, make sure that all of the people that are part of this team, maybe 20, 25%, 30%, 40% of the total, the money that is allocated to the budget has to go towards these groups. But there's no structure for me as a developer and being black to benefit from that.
Why not?
That's where the most money is.
Has it ever been proposed or no?
I've never heard of it. I'm sure it has. Historic black developers aren't a thing.
Not a lot of them.
No, it's not a thing because historically, banks, we all know about redlining. We all know about that. There's a book called The Color of Law. I talked about this before, but for people that don't know, The Color of Law documented the government's effect on communities and the intentionality of segregation. So what they did was, if a white developer even was developing something that allowed a black person to live in it, HUD would not insure it, so the bank would not give a loan. So that was for a white developer. So imagine a black developer trying to develop something for black people. It wasn't possible. So the Marion Barrys of the world, and just like H.J. Russell in Atlanta, the mayor of Atlanta, the mayor of D.C., reached out and used their political connections to bring these two people up, H.J. Russell in Atlanta, Don Peebles in D.C., in order to create an economic engine in our community that allow for growth in a way that does not exist. So again, it's just not a thing at all. And hopefully it can become a thing, but there's not enough black developers. I mean, I'm at conferences all the time. I go to real estate meetups and everything like that, but oftentimes it's like most folks are investors because that's all we know. Most of the developers I know they don't look like me. Shout out to Kevin Newell. It's a big bro of mine. He's killing it in Milwaukee right now. Yeah. Absolutely killing it. He's a black developer that is doing his thing. A couple folks out here in D.C. as well, D.R. McKinney, I really respect. Don Peebles' son is actually doing development out in D.C. as well. So there's some black developers like bubbling up. Yeah. But yeah, it's just not.
How important is political connections?
Depends on where you are. I would say in Wisconsin, not as much. Wisconsin is a very objective state. If you are checking these boxes, you can move forward. In a place like other places, it's not that objective. It's a little more subjective.
Like who you know and all that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, yeah, I think we were talking about the construction part real quick. So you start off a ton of pre-development risk. You pay for all of these consultants, couple $100,000. And then at the closing table, so the benefit of getting to the closing table is that all that risk is wiped away. So it's all a part of the development budget. Although you're paying for it before it happens, you get refunded once all your money comes in. So the $300,000 that you had out, the $1 million that you had out, all comes back right there. So that's a great day. And then what happens in the construction phase, you have to mitigate that risk because, people may not come to work, or the cost of something may be more expensive, or the design wasn't. You have to change the design up and things like that. So you have to look out for all of those things before you get under construction, because when that construction budget gets blown up, it's a real thing. And the first thing that goes at that point is your developer fee. We have to pay for that. So we got to mitigate that risk, because you can get a project done and not make nothing. To that point, my first project, 60-unit affordable housing development, $12.6 million, I made $30,000 on.
Wow.
3.5 years worth of work, I made $30,000. That was it.
What kind of insurance do you have to be protected? Like
During construction?
Just as a developer, I'm sure, like anything, you said like you're on the hook, right? So I guess you don't want to have to always come out of your pocket if something happens.
That's a risk you take.
So there's no insurance?
Nah, it's not a thing. Nah, it's just a risk you take. So that deal, $12.5 million. My original development partners, so this was my first project. This one I got in 2016. My original development partners were a fully integrated firm. So they did development, construction, and property management. They did it all. So I'm like, okay, bet, let me partner with these guys. Let me learn from their different entities. It's all one stop, and then we gonna do it. Moving forward, once we got the award, their board wasn't as comfortable with the original terms we agreed to. So now, so you have to make guarantees. You make financial guarantees for construction. I guarantee that this will be built even on my own dime. And you have to spread the risk across a development profile and share that with partners. If they're making all the guarantees, they're taking all of the money. So that's why we get boxed out too. Black folks typically don't have
capital to save,
wealth, etc.
Yeah,
so we can't make guarantees.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because I have a friend a client as well, who's a developer in New York. He's black. He always tells me about these personal guarantees that he has to put up of like all this money and properties. Like whenever time they doing a deal, and it's like him and his partner, they got to do these personal lines of guarantees and all that stuff.
Personal guarantees.
And
if you don't have the bare minimum for the projects that I'm working on, you need $1 million of liquidity, like cash, and $5 million in net worth to start the conversation.
That's going to eliminate a lot of us.
That's why you don't see black developers. That's the primary reason why you don't see black developers, because you can't get in the game. And then when you start to, you get raped. It's like, okay, well, you got an idea, you got a concept. I want 90%. You can get 10, and then we just get used as brokers to find sites, and so they can make more money. But I wasn't on that. I'm not on that. So I get the majority of my fees at this point. At least 51%. I'm gonna get standing on it.
We're not moving on that. That's not negotiable.
So you said partnerships. So you partner with a lot of people.
Yeah, I have to.
So for a young cat, or just not even a young cat, anybody just in general, because like you said, it's a lot of barriers to get in. Is that the best way to go about it? Is to kind of find somebody already that's successful and kind of work with them?
Yeah, I mean, I get reached out to all the time. I want to support everybody, but realistically, I just can't. It's a capacity thing. So that said, I think the best way is to create value. You have to create value. If you're not creating value, then you're just there. If you want to work with me, just like if I want to work with them, is it worth my time to work with you? Not if
you're not bringing anything to the table.
I can do it on my own.
No, I tell people that all the time. It gotta be mutual, and it can't because that's more of a charity thing, right?
Yeah,
it's like
exactly.
you can only do so much
And
charity.
there's a time and a place for that.
Yeah,
You know?
it's mentorship, charity. It's not a business partnership. Business partnership has it
100%.
doesn't have to be equal, but you have to bring something of value.
Yeah. So if you can create value in real estate, the way that I did it, I created the financial model, I created the vision, and I got the land and the contract. That was my control. So if I pitched it to anybody, they can't just go get this land. I already got it.
Yeah.
So now it's like I have leverage. So if you, as a developer, or aspiring developer, want to take that strategy, go get some land under contract, put a financial plan that makes sense. I talked about language earlier. Show me the language. This is the language that we speak right here. When you start speaking that language, we can partner with no problem.
Now, the last part, that property management piece, do you have your own, or are you still partnering with somebody for that?
Most of my development partners have their own shops. Okay. I don't have my own. It only makes sense when you have so many units. You got to scale. It's a scale thing. Okay. So when I get to a couple thousand units, I'll probably start one. But right now, no.
All right. So in the last segment, we're gonna talk about scaling. We're also gonna talk about a few other businesses that you got in the DMV, since we're in the DMV. So talk about multiple streams of income for sure. All right. So in the last segment, we're gonna talk about a few things. But first, I want to talk about scaling because obviously you've come a long way, but you're still young. So what's your vision? What's your plan? What's your goals as far as scaling moving forward into this new decade?
Yeah, that's real. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm an entrepreneur, so I think my profession is a real estate developer, but I'm really an entrepreneur. So scaling, I'm open to different concepts. One being, said I wasn't gonna say it, but working on a real estate crowdfunding platform.
Okay.
I think that'll be my next big endeavor. That should probably launch early next year.
Okay.
So that's a goal, and that's a tech platform. So I plan to leverage tech to crowdfund money in real estate and then pour it back in our community in a way that doesn't currently exist. There's an access to capital challenge, and this is the way that I'm gonna fix it.
Right. So like that gap that you were saying that was there, you are now seizing it. Dope.
Yeah, so that's the goal. That's part of it. Scaling specifically for Rural Enterprises, my development company. I'm gonna keep doing affordable housing primarily. That's my thing. I think we need it everywhere, and it'll always be a thing. So if I could do 1 or 2 deals in Wisconsin a year, I think that's cool for now. And then working on some stuff in DC, working on a platform. I guess not a platform, but it's a affordable housing initiative with a professor out of Georgetown Law called Gatebridge. Dope. And what we're doing is trying to identify 5 sites for us to develop in DC, Baltimore, and Philly. So for me, I think next year I'm going to be targeting 4 to 5 sites in those areas. I have one in DC right now that I'm working on in Southwest DC. It's 140 units or so, probably close to an $80 million development, about 25,000 square feet.
Are you bringing anybody with you as far as like a mentor or apprentice along the journey so they can see what this is like?
Yes and no. I'm mentored a ton. Milwaukee has probably the most black developers in the country.
Wow.
It's crazy. So I got an OG, and then I got some young homies that are coming up too. But in DC, I'm actually launching a platform, launching a educational type of deal for a development training program, and I'm actually going to do it in partnership, probably with Georgetown. So that'll launch next year as well. Dope. So I'm gonna call that Reinvest.
And you have a bar lounge in DC. Also.
Yeah, so I own a bar lounge in DC.
What's that? What's the deal with that?
It's called the Cage Bird. Open that. Like I said, I think I mentioned it earlier. Like I used to fund bars and pubs and things like that, so I knew the finance of it. So I'm like, came across an opportunity. A friend of mine, best friend in Milwaukee, he's a developer too, but he owns a spot in Milwaukee. So he was looking at opening one in DC. Got introduced to a broker. Broker reached out. I walked the site for him. It was first in Adams Morgan. I'm like, I ain't really feeling this. You shouldn't do it. I told him he shouldn't do it because he wanted to do it at first. Then identified a site in DuPont Circle, predominantly white area in DC. And I was like, this would be dope. Like, it was a cool opportunity. So told him about it. I think I want to do this. You down? He had some things going on in Milwaukee that he needs to straighten out. He was like, just take it and run with it. So I said, bet. I went out, created an equity pool, because I practice what I preach. Like, I literally am all about black wealth. That's who I am. Mm-hmm. I know I'm going to be straight on the development side. I'm not worried about my finances, but if I can create opportunities for ownership for my people, I think I'm living in my purpose. So created an equity pool, brought in a bunch of owners.
Equity pool, just a bunch of people that just pulled their money together.
Yeah, so I actually, I did 50% finance and then 50% like sweat equity.
Okay.
So if you wanted to come in and like be the chef or, come in and run the bar or come in and run events, I kind of created an opportunity for that too.
So if you didn't have money, you can work your way in.
Yeah, pretty much. So that was, I have capacity constraints. I'm a full-time developer. I run a whole enterprise. I just couldn't do it on my own anyway. But I thought that this would be the best way. So 100% black owned, operated, staffed, and financed.
Dope.
All by us. It's been a very good learning experience. It's been a roller coaster ride. But
Not easy. Restaurant business is not easy.
The name of the restaurant, where'd you get it from?
Want to pay homage to a black woman. So honestly, Busboys and Poets is a prominent place in DC. So I was like, oh, that name is dope. And it's a nod to Langston Hughes. Yeah. So I was like,
Harlem.
Right. I'm like, who inspired me? Maya Angelou was that person. So I was like, okay, how can I think through a name? So ended up landing on The Caged Bird. 2016, I saw Maya Angelou's documentary, And Still I Rise. Yeah. It was a great documentary. And it was the first time, I always knew that I was living Black history, but it was the first time I was able to like identify it in somebody else. Like, I saw this whole process. She was a woman, she was molested, she was silent, she then started speaking, she became a poet. She was everything under the sun you could think of, good things, bad things, etc. Do the research, you can find it. But she was a true and actual person. So I wanted to create a space that people could live and be Black history within. So I named it The Caged Bird.
Cool.
For sure. And I think it's fitting because DC has so much rich history, rich Black history, rich every history. I mean, this is the capital of America, but we can't talk about America without the contributions of African Americans.
We can't talk about Washington, D.C. without the contributions of Black Americans.
Well, that's why, and that's why the museum. I haven't gotten a chance to go to the museum yet. Have you gone there yet?
Yeah, I've been a few times.
Yeah, you gotta go to the museum.
I'm being there one day.
For sure, that's a fact. That's a fact.
Yeah.
That's a fact.
I'm standing on it.
Yeah.
That's a fact. That's a fact, man. So, yeah, congratulations, man. It's very inspiring, especially a lot of times, like during the conversation, we might have forgot that you're only 31 years old. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, not that I'm far removed. Troy's more.
Damn, man. I'm
not that far removed
we all
from
in our 30s, man.
Yeah,
I'm not all that. But nah, man, congratulations. And it's great to see, to see people, because a lot of times we highlight things that are negative.
For sure.
But we got to highlight the positive.
Yeah. I'm not the type, I don't look for attention. That's not really my thing. Like, I actually don't care for it. People probably don't believe that, but it was something in me that said it would be a disservice to my community for not giving the knowledge that I have. So I had to like accept it.
No, and it's the greatest gift that you can give.
Yeah.
It's inspiration. And like I said, I was telling you off camera, you never know who's listening. And like the kid that's like, oh, I could be a real estate developer, not just an investor, not just... Oh,
that's
all right.
thing.
Like,
yeah,
and now, exactly.
We didn't know it exists. Or I could be a civil engineer. Like, oh, that's what they do.
So much. It's so much money in real estate. It don't make no sense.
Yeah. And it's like how you looked at people's, like, there might be somebody looking at you just like that.
That's
what I'm saying. So it's like, but that's how life is so crazy.
Yeah, for sure.
And you don't even realize it. And it's like you inspiring somebody. And it's like now they might inspire somebody like off of what you taught. Like, you know what I'm saying? Exactly.
But shouts out to y'all for having a platform to do so.
Thank you.
You know what I'm saying? This is much important for us, for our community, and to be able to dig into these numbers in a way that doesn't exist. You're not going to be able to Google some of the stuff that I said today. Some of these numbers that I said today. I'll break down the restaurant business too if y'all want me to.
Part two coming soon.
Part two soon.
It's just
soon coming.
Yeah, you can't Google this stuff. So appreciate y'all.
Nah, thank you, man. So how can the people contact you? Any initiatives that you want to make them aware of, social media and all that stuff? B_RULE. That's my Instagram handle, B-Rule. Everybody call me that. I was branded. There's a ton of brandings growing up. So sports name, B-Rule. Like Ja Rule.
Yeah,
Rule
I got that a lot.
Man.
Rule Enterprises is the name of my development company. Caged Bird is my restaurant bar in DuPont. And I got a new thing called Reinvest coming out soon. So y'all should check that out too.
Dope. Troy, housekeeping items?
Yeah. Shout out to everybody on patreon.com. Every time we come on, it seems like we get new members. So I just want to give a quick shout out and recognition to C. Manuel, Raphael, Ariel, Mark, and Gregory. Shout out to y'all for joining us on Patreon. Tier 4 and 5 members, you know that you have access to EYL University, our online school, and it's growing, man. We have a lot of webinars up there, a lot of great content. We have from taxes to what else did we have on there?
Everything.
Notary.
Mobile notary.
Yeah.
We had Sabine talking about trademarking.
Multiple streams of income.
We did multiple streams of income. How to start a podcast. 203K loan class. Yeah. Everything you could think of, and every week is three classes added to the curriculum. So it's
growing,
dope.
man. It's a growing university, and the merch is out too. So as you can see, Rashad has the EYL University hoodie on.
Some gear, man.
I got you.
I'm still rocking the assets over liabilities because that's our go-to slogan, right? Having more assets to pay for liabilities is the way to financial freedom. So keep supporting that and keep tuning in, man. The podcast is growing. Our streams of income have grown. We come up with new ideas and new lessons, man. This was like a history lesson and a business lesson in one, man.
Yeah, for sure.
B-Rule, thank you.
I appreciate it.
Motivational purposes only.
That's it, man.
Dream chaser.
That's it. That's all. Let's build, man.
For sure. Atlanta, don't forget Atlanta. January 25th, January 26th. We'll be releasing information on that soon, but we coming to town for sure. And who knows, Brandon might pop up.
I might pull up. We'll see.
Might pull up. Book tip of this week is
Think and Grow Rich, A Black Choice by Dennis Kimbrough. Check it out.
There you have it. But yes, thank you guys for rocking with us. We'll see you next week. Peace.
Peace.
Perfect.